But then, on the aspect of the finance bill, it has just shown us what Kenyans really want. Kenyans want an accountable leadership. And Kenyans are saying we are not going to be whipped by emotions and euphoria, and just because there are things that will be glittery and they will move that direction. The finance bill conversation, look at it. The first thing that in my view needs to be done today, if we are a sober country, is 186 constituencies in Kenya should be busy recalling their members of parliament. Because I want to imagine that the most important function of a member of parliament is to debate the finance bill. Because it is the bill that is talking about the pockets of the common mwananchi. And so, when you elected someone who was not present, it essentially means that 186 constituencies were not their voice was not heard. That is quite unfortunate. I don't think there is an excuse that can actually measure up to someone saying they did not really participate in this finance bill. So my first problem is with the 186 people who actually never said yes, nor said no. Secondly, the important aspect also that came out heavily in the finance bill is that you can't go and spew propaganda on the floor of the House. Because propaganda is very, very heavy, and it can even lead a nation to war. I was very glad with the actions of the majority leader and the finance committee chairperson in their struggle to really ensure they counter the propaganda and the narrative that was being set. Because in the event that that was could flow, if that was able to fly, then you could be able to imagine how the country would have been. The anger today in the country would be boiling at fever pitch. Yet, it is pegged on a propaganda tool. It is pegged on something about Mitumba, the other one he has said it here, about M-Pesa and whatever, and I think that was the briefing that they had. And I think after receiving this briefing, the members of parliament go to the House, and it's unfortunate that as a member of parliament, you can't read the bill for yourself, but you're simply getting a briefing and going to shout it on the floor of the House. I was so disappointed with some of the leaders from my own region who would not even quote the clauses. Before you read a bill, clauses can just be seen. Once you can open the last page and see that it ends at 57. When you quote 169, honestly. Now, the outrageous thing, Trish, about it was that when Honorable Majimbo was quoting clause 169, he was holding the bill in his hand. And he was actually saying, Kenyans are not stupid. He was saying, you can no longer deceive Kenyans. Today, Kenyans know, and that's why you cannot hide something under clause 169. It was so disappointing. You look at Ndindi Nyoro, for instance, Trisha, and he comes and spews some propaganda around Mitumba. When he is put to fact check that, he says no, there was no public participation. When it's proven that actually 100,000 people were actually reached and they participated in the public participation, he says no, they were manufactured. Now, when he says they were manufactured, he even forgets that he was one of them. So he's asked whether he was also manufactured because he was one of the people who was there among the 100,000. Then when he gets there, the rubber meets the road, and then he says he is under no one's obligation to quote any section of the bill. And that is the pretense that we must be able to move away from. And that's why we need a reset at our parliament. That's why we need to elect people who have sobriety of mind, people who understand what they are doing, people who know that they can be able to read a bill, people who can research on what they are able to do. Those are the kind of leaders that Kenyans must be able to bring to the parliament. I am hoping that they are able to see for themselves. And we have so many young people today who are presenting themselves for election outside there, who you can be able to see that they have been able to do 1, 2, 3 things. There are people who can read. There are people who know what they are doing. They would be able to represent you better. So I think, in my view, the finance bill, if there is anything it did very well, it really opened the can of worms for us to see Kenya's opposition for what it really is. That it's really just another outfit that is interested in political expediency. It is just about taking advantage of a situation. And what I read is that I think there was interest that they are able to spew anger in the public, raise emotions as we head towards June 25th, so that then you combine the anger and then the finance bill conversation and then take the country to a cliff. But it was very good that because of being fact-checked by the finance committee chair and the majority leader, that fell flat-foot. And that's why today, the only thing they can now do is to rush and say, please, people, don't go on the street. But why are they doing that? Because they have already heard that the young people have already learned them. The young people have already said, wait a minute, you guys are misleading us. You guys are not even reading those bills yourselves, and we're not going to the streets for you. We have actually said we're not going to the street. And so I think part of strategy sometimes is that when you realize that it will not work, pretend to be the one who said it shouldn't happen.